There's a mountain in Jerusalem where two worlds collide. 35 acres of ancient stone. Two global faiths, both claiming the same ground belongs to them, both pointing to sacred texts as their proof. And friend, what's quietly unfolding around this mountain right now has captured the attention of prophecy watchers worldwide. Let me take you back to a pivotal moment. 1967. Israeli soldiers reached the Western Wall for the first time in approximately 2,000 years. According to historical accounts, their commander spoke words that echoed throughout the nation. "The Temple Mount is in our hands." Yet, hours later, a decision was made that still shapes events today. Authority over the religious compound was transferred back to Islamic leadership. That single decision created what many consider an impossible situation. Here's why this matters prophetically. According to Jewish tradition, the temple can only occupy one specific location, Mount Moriah. This isn't considered a preference within traditional interpretation. Many religious authorities describe it as a divine mandate, preserved across 3,000 years. This is the mountain where Scripture tells us Abraham demonstrated his faith, where King David acquired land for worship, where Solomon constructed the first temple, where the second temple stood until Roman forces destroyed it. Within Jewish understanding, this represents the exact point where heaven touches earth. But friend, here's the complexity. Atop this same mountain stand two of Islam's most sacred structures, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. Muslims call this place Haram al-Sharif, meaning the noble sanctuary. It represents the third holiest site in Islam. Over 1 billion people consider it sacred ground. Islamic tradition teaches that the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven from this very location. Two faiths, one mountain, both claiming divine ownership. Former diplomats have reportedly warned that few places on Earth carry the potential for widespread conflict like this single location. So, how does this situation eventually resolve? Some researchers point to factors that operate beyond human control entirely.
Jerusalem sits upon seismically active ground. The city rests directly above what geologists call the Jordan Valley Fault System. This geological formation extends from Syria through the Jordan Valley toward the Red Sea. According to scientific surveys, it passes directly beneath the Temple Mount. Historical records document Jerusalem's vulnerability. Around 31 BC, ancient historians recorded a massive seismic event that destroyed Jericho and damaged Jerusalem significantly. In approximately 749 AD, Byzantine chronicles describe another devastating earthquake. Walls cracked throughout the Temple Mount area. More recently, in 1927, a significant earthquake struck near the Dead Sea. Over 500 casualties were reported. Scientists studying these patterns have observed that major seismic events appear along this fault line approximately every century. The most recent significant event occurred nearly 100 years ago. The structures on the mount were constructed over 1,300 years ago. According to engineering assessments, they weren't designed from modern seismic standards. Friend, here's what makes this factor distinctive within prophetic discussions. If natural forces eventually affect these structures, no political decision bears responsibility. Some religious leaders have publicly expressed belief that divine providence may address obstacles through means beyond human planning. But there's another factor many prophecy students are watching closely. The prophet Ezekiel wrote about events involving Israel in chapters 38 and 39. These passages describe a coalition of nations approaching from the north. For centuries, scholars debated interpretation. Today, many observers note contemporary parallels worth examining. Various powers maintain military positioning in regions surrounding Israel. Intelligence reports have tracked increased coordination according to various sources. Zechariah chapter 12 contains a passage many connect to these dynamics. It describes Jerusalem becoming burdensome for surrounding nations. Defense analysts have observed that modern conflicts often affect religious and cultural sites despite protective intentions. Urban environments create unpredictable circumstances. But friend, there's a third factor that may prove most significant of all. Daniel chapter 9 contains a passage many scholars consider central to end times understanding. It describes a future covenant involving many parties, a peace agreement that accomplishes what generations of diplomats couldn't achieve. According to this interpretation, a leader emerges who solves seemingly impossible problems. He brokers agreements between historical adversaries. He creates conditions that allow temple construction. Many theologians conclude this passage indicates the temple must exist before certain prophesied events unfold. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 describes a figure entering a temple structure and making extraordinary claims about himself. Friend, these passages suggest something remarkable. The temple isn't just a religious goal. According to many prophetic interpretations, it's a necessary component of how end times events unfold.
And this brings us to what's happening right now in Jerusalem. According to various reports, everything traditionally required for temple service already exists. The Temple Institute has spent decades recreating items described in biblical texts. According to their documentation, these aren't museum replicas. They're functional objects constructed to traditional specifications. The golden menorah reportedly stands complete. Priestly garments have been prepared, the altar of incense, the table of showbread, sacred vessels for various rituals. According to Institute representatives, all these items await only access to the location. But friend, the most discussed element involves something quite unexpected. Jewish tradition requires a red heifer for specific purification rituals. Traditional requirements specify a perfect specimen without any disqualifying marks. In 2022, according to various reports, qualified red heifers were transported from Texas to Israel. They've been raised under rabbinical supervision with regular examination. Reports indicate some of these animals have reached appropriate age while maintaining qualification. Beyond objects and animals, personnel preparation continues. According to various sources, hundreds of men have been identified as Kohanim, descendants of Aaron, through genetic testing. They've reportedly undergone training in traditional procedures. Architectural plans have been completed. Materials have been gathered. Construction approaches have been studied. Friend, consider what this means prophetically. Events that previously required decades now develop within months. Israel's establishment occurred in 1948. Jerusalem came under Israeli authority in 1967. Temple preparation movements gained momentum during the 1980s. Genetic identification of priests advanced during the 2000s. The red heifers arrived in 2022. Each development arrived faster than preceding ones. Many prophecy researchers observe that geological factors, geopolitical positioning, and physical preparations appear to be converging simultaneously. The sacred vessels reportedly exist, the priests are identified, the animals have been located, the blueprints are drawn. According to those watching closely, only authorization remains outstanding.
Friend, what should we make of these converging developments? First, these aren't abstract religious curiosities. They're documented preparations with potential prophetic significance. Second, for those who hold biblical faith, these developments should inspire hope rather than anxiety. According to Scripture, God remains sovereign over every nation, every leader, every circumstance. Nothing develops outside His awareness. Jesus encouraged His followers to watch for signs, to recognize seasons, to remain alert. But he also said to lift up our heads when we see these things beginning. Why? Because our redemption draws near. The prophet Zechariah wrote about Jerusalem becoming central to global attention, but that passage concludes with restoration and the reign of the King. Whatever unfolds on that mountain, according to Scripture, ultimately serves divine purposes moving toward redemption. Friend, the preparations reportedly continue. Various factors position around Jerusalem. But for believers, the appropriate response isn't fear. It's watchful anticipation. Because according to biblical promises, everything points toward one glorious conclusion. The King is coming, and his kingdom will have no end. If this blessed you, share it with someone who needs encouragement today. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss what we're covering next. Until then, keep watching, keep praying, and keep looking up. Shalom.